You may have the stick.
Thank you.
Yeah. Earn it. Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Elliot, and this is my colleague, Jacob.
What's up, guys?
And we are here to bring you another RRFC Hangout. Today, our topic is ideas. How we come up with them and how we workshop them into something that we can actually flesh out into a feature-length screenplay. So, to kick it off, Jacob, where do you get your ideas?
It can be from a number of places, but primarily it just... Honestly, a lot of my ideas are kind of spontaneous. Oh my gosh, words. Are spontaneous. Yeah, they can come from any number of places, you know. If there's something that I'm interested in, like a particular, profession that someone does, or maybe there's a thing I read about on the news. Usually it starts with a character, and then, or a plot, something that happens, and then it kind of derives from there. What about you?
Well, I want to reference, I can't remember the writer's name, so I don't want to misattribute it, but the writer is continually asked, like, where do you get your ideas from? And his answer is that there's a man in Nantucket who you write a letter to him with a self-addressed prepaid envelope in there, so he can just, write your letter requesting an idea to this little man in Nantucket, and then the guy will mail you back your idea. And basically with that kind of facetious answer, that kind of speaks to just how silly that question is.
Yeah.
Because you get ideas just by being alive, just by looking around at the things around you, and then two atoms in your brain click, or neurons, I don't know.
Yeah.
And they just hit, and it's like, hey, that would be a great idea for a story. But there's no process that you have to do to get that idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a matter of, reading an interesting article that causes things to spark in your mind. Sometimes it's watching another movie or TV show
I was about to say that.
Yeah, thinking like, oh, I would love to tell kind of a story like this, but kind of putting my own spin on it, Sometimes it is as simple as going to sleep at night and then this crazy out of nowhere thought pops in your brain, and you decide that you really want to work with that a while, play with it, and see where it leads.
Yeah.
So there's no right way to get an idea, but there is a right way to take that idea into something that you can actually turn into a movie that you can write, shoot, get rich from, and win an Oscar for,
money.
Theory, maybe.
Yeah.
So we requested students send us some ideas, bad ideas, so that we could review them during the video and just kind of show you the process of how we break down the idea and turn it into something that's actually worthwhile. So the first idea that we have was submitted by Bryce, and the idea is that a brand of chocolate that turns all people into mutant chocolate monsters. So, Jacob, when you hear this idea, what do you think about it?
It's silly. It's extremely silly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think you and I had talked a little bit about this idea beforehand, but just the fact that it's kind of absurd because it has like this comedy horror feel to it. At least that's the vibe I got when I read the synopsis. But the great thing is you could probably take this in a number of directions depending on the tone that you wanted to set for it.
Yeah, I think that because chocolate is the inciting incident, that's something that is, as you said, pretty silly. I mean, instead of getting a sugar high from the candy, people are turning into bloodthirsty monsters. Like, that is a premise that you can easily pitch. You can easily tell people about and get people like, oh man, I want to see that movie. So I would say that the one thing to worry about is that comedy horror movies don't tend to do that well. That's in terms of mainstream box office. And that's because, people want to see a comedy because they really want to laugh. people want to go see a horror movie because they want to get scared. So when you get that horror comedy, it's a little like audiences are uneasy. They don't know exactly how to feel about it, and most of the time, the mainstream audience will stay away. Now, there's a huge cult audience for horror comedies. I love horror comedies like Tremors, Cabin in the Woods, that stuff, Shaun of the Dead. That stuff, all right up my alley, up many people's alley, you know? And people like Edgar Wright and Peter Jackson, they built careers on horror comedies.
And those movies really took off in the indie market.
Yeah, the great thing about a good horror comedy is a lot of time they're indie movies. You know, they're very low budget so that they don't have to appeal to, 4 quadrants across the board, play in every mall of America. They just need to get enough interest in them so that they can become those cult, nowadays VOD successes. So I think with this idea, chocolate turning people into mutant chocolate monsters, that's something, it actually has the title Chalkpocalypse. And that's a great title because you instantly get it. Chocolate apocalypse. Chalkpocalypse. Yeah. Beautiful. Now, in terms of fleshing out an idea, there are a couple different things that need to happen. The first is your characters. Who is this movie about? So when we had talked about this before in an unrelated conversation, we thought that you could have this be like teenagers as the protagonists, since this is villainous candy, basically. I had thought of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode Band Candy. Due to the proliferation of genre material out there, shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, any kind of horror idea that you want to do, typically there are prior examples of it. And it's not to say that because a Buffy idea crossed into similar story points 20 years ago, you should dissuade yourself from doing a feature-length version of that similar idea. But it would definitely behoove you to familiarize yourself with that episode, just so that you see, kind of how it works. The Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode in particular, Band Candy, is about the fundraising candy that the band uses that turns all of the adults who eat it into, I don't want to spoil the episode, but it has some crazy effects on the people who ingest it. And that's something where in that episode it was played more comedic on a character level, and with this, it seems like mutant chocolate monsters, it's more of a zombie outbreak, like a 28 Days Later kind of scenario.
What was the tone for that Buffy episode?
Very silly.
Silly?
Yeah.
Off the rails kind of.
Off the rails. It's more that it changed their personalities than it turned them into monsters. I think with this idea, you can have the movie Slither, directed by James Gunn of Guardians of the Galaxy fame. Great movie. It's mainly these little alien slugs who are, I haven't seen it in like 10 years, forgive me, but it's mainly these alien slugs who are the bad guys, but then the Michael Rooker character kind of becomes this enormous monster who kind of becomes the final boss. Yeah. And I think with this movie, there's a lot of potential to have most people who eat the chocolate, they can just become, crazy zombie-esque things. I would say like fast zombies. Yeah. You can just have them have like chocolate smeared all over their bodies and just like yellow teeth just like going at you. And then you can have your main villain character, whether it's the principal or the mayor, definitely somebody who's has some kind of relationship with your protagonist so that it adds that personal edge. But you can have him become a glutton, just eating chocolate bar after chocolate bar, and he becomes this like giant like chocolate, like almost like a Hershey's Kiss, a giant Hershey's Kiss that is just consuming everything and secreting chocolatey filth into the world. And I think we had talked about Like, you can do scenes where, like, somebody's in a pool and, like, chocolate's getting dropped in and, the chocolate kind of melts.
And we also talked about, like, some interesting side characters to pay homage to some type of...
Oh, yeah. So, with the protagonist and his kind of circle of friends, girlfriend, do you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, well, we were thinking kind of, since it's chocolate related, is having maybe a girlfriend or maybe even the main character be a dentist and having some relation to...
Well, an aspiring dentist.
An aspiring dentist, that's right. And having that kind of be kind of related to the main conflict involving chocolate, and maybe the main character or their girlfriend is addicted to sweets, or something like that. But the idea that always came to my mind was a similar character to, like, Ash versus the Evil Dead character who has, like, a chainsaw of, like, dental floss. Some, like, really tough, guy who can take out the zombies, or in this case, it would be chocolate people. But.
Yeah, I mean, the movie Shaun of the Dead, for instance, has the iconic weapon of the cricket bat.
Yeah.
And so with this movie, if you can find that kind of angle, just something that's easy to put in a trailer, put in a poster, just some cool scene of somebody dispatching the enemies in a great way. We had talked about, the girlfriend who's... she's studying to become a dentist, like she's sending out her applications to dental schools, and she can, it's one of those things where because she's dating this guy, the guy has to kind of, stay away from sweets.
Yeah.
In those relationships where one person's predilections towards life kind of, it's like my girlfriend's a vegetarian, so I guess I'm a vegetarian too. Yeah. That kind of thing. But that's a reason why these, main characters aren't affected by the outbreak. And then the other character you're talking about, like a best friend who's he has a very big sweet tooth. He can be the kind of guy who has like a backpack of sweets.
Yeah.
Jolly Ranchers and Skittles and Snickers and all that. And it can be something, a good way to build suspense would be to have... his mother like buy a candy bar for him and slip it into his backpack as a surprise for him later. And this kid, as he's nervous, he just like reaches in and like has some candy, starts eating it. We know there's a chocolate bar in his backpack, but we don't know, is he gonna realize it's there, not eat it, or is he just gonna eat it absentmindedly?
Yeah.
And the fun thing about zombie movies is usually when a character gets bitten and then they have to decide, all right, am I going to shoot myself? Am I going to keep it a secret?
Yep.
So it's basically like everything we're talking about is just finding angles. Any idea, any kind of idea that you can come up with it is what it is. But it's about putting the bloom on the rose.
And this idea lends itself a lot to... it's a very original concept. Like, I had never heard of anything involving, like, chocolate. It was just very silly, and so that's what it has going for it, is that you can take that originality, and, you're pulling from things that already exist, like tropes and character types, archetypes, and a story structure that's very similar, but you have a very original, interesting concept that'll draw people to it. That's the important thing to note here, guys, is that... original ideas doesn't mean it has to be wholly original, like you've never seen this type of a story before, because odds are you probably have. It's about finding a interesting, unique, or new look at a very similar or familiar story.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's nothing new under the sun, but you definitely just want to be a fun, entertaining ride.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think that's definitely something that has a lot of potential.
Chocolate.
And it's kind of the thing, like one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
And not to say that that's a dumb idea or anything, but with ideas like that, one person can look at it and be like, oh, that's so stupid. Like, I would never want to do something. Another person can look at it and be like, oh, man, this could be really fun, because it just gives you ammunition to use when you're just telling a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would say, so that's that's kind of what you would do for that kind of movie. So now let's look at another movie. This idea is from Michael, and it's actually an idea for a documentary, but we're going to approach it as a fiction film. And basically, it's a concept for baby mama drama about men who are having child custody or child support troubles in their life. So this is an idea that affects a wide number of Americans. Either having babies out of wedlock or, getting married, having children, getting divorced. And then, there's this life that needs to be addressed and handled.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's couples can work out, like, okay, I'll have them Monday through Friday, you have them on the weekends. Other times it's a lot more vicious, the battles. So there have been a lot of ensemble movies in recent years. I believe you brought up What to Expect when you're expecting. There are others like He's Just Not That Into You or Valentine's Day. A lot of these are romantic comedy type movies. But the main thing to see is that all these movies have a general theme, and then they bring in a lot of characters to address it. Probably the best known or the best received in certain regards would be Crash, which won Best Picture in 2005. And that was a movie about racism and how it affects people in Los Angeles, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
And that brought in a lot of different cast members of all shapes and nationalities to approach the topic from a lot of different angles. So I think with this one, the baby mama drama idea, it would be good to have a cast of about a pretty wide cast, but at least like 3 leads.
Yeah, three that you can focus on. It's interesting too, before we really get into the nitty gritty of it, that like when we break down these ideas and we look at them, we start to think immediately of what stories, what films we've seen that kind of resonate with us, similar to that idea. It's actually something that we do here with our students, is that after we look at their ideas with them, we'll talk to them, we'll give them movies to watch that are similar to that. And the whole point of this is so that we can pull ideas from them to kind of incorporate them and make it kind of Frankenstein it into something wholly original.
Yeah, I mean, when you release your movie or when you write your screenplay and shop it around, you're not telling a story in a vacuum. You're not the first person who's told a story.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of elements that are similar to another successful or widely known film or television show, like, people are going to bring that up to you. They're going to say, hey, this sounds a lot like Kingsman, the Secret Service, or what have you. And you need to be prepared for that and have a reason.
And own it.
Yeah. You have to have a reason why they would be interested in your story, even though there's been similar stories of that ilk.
Yeah.
I mean, in the past several years, we've gotten a lot of spy movies, like Spectre, Kingsman, Spy with Melissa McCarthy, and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. The list goes on and on. But each one of those, in theory, has kind of a unique angle to set it apart from the others. And that's what you want to find with your story. Like, the reason why this is worthy of an audience's time. And the other thing that's important is, why does an audience care about the story? There are so many entertainment options for people nowadays. Why should a person take 2 hours of their time to watch your movie when they could watch literally anything else during that time? So this idea, the baby mama drama, I think that's something that can definitely emotionally connect to people, because most of us know somebody who's gone through a child-raising issue like this. I think with the main characters, it's a good way to get a cross-section of American life. You can have one character who's in a bitter custody battle with his wife. You can have another guy who's his girlfriend got pregnant and they're choosing to not get married but still, raise the child together, and see the kind of ups and downs of how that functions. You can have one guy who he went through all this as a kid, and then he's finding himself trapped in this, the cycle is repeating now that he's an adult. And it's just all these different angles are ways to reach out to more people.
Might also be interesting to include a character that maybe is in jail or something like that and is dealing with, or I guess he wouldn't be dealing with custody then.
Well, there's still a lot of, like, there are fathers who are in prison, you know?
Right, well, yeah, that's what I was thinking of, is that a father trying to still connect with his child, even from prison.
Yeah, and I mean, you can have the main, like, one of the main characters, or all of them, like, go to visit the guy in prison and get, like, a different perspective on the issue. I mean, this kind of story is, like, you don't just have the guys who are dealing with this. You have the women who are involved, and you have the kids, too. So it's something that you can really flesh out the situation into a multi-dimensional story, and something that literally everybody who watches it can connect to it on a different level.
But you need to make sure that those conflicts between each character and what they want is very clearly laid out, because in a movie with an ensemble cast especially, it can get somewhat confusing if you're not clear on what every character wants. And it should be derived almost all from the same source, I would say, if it's feeding to a central theme. And that's kind of something you guys are going to discover as you work through these ideas, is that you'll come across themes inherently embedded in your material that you weren't even aware of. And you may not even be able to articulate that, but if you know what they are and you can actually identify them, springboard off of that and use that to further develop the idea and flesh it out more, because that's what I've found works really well for me. I don't know if you've had anything similar in terms of, like, coming up with a theme.
Sometimes a theme doesn't happen right away. You actually need to start outlining the story, like figuring out who your characters are. And then as you're taken along, you kind of realize what story you really want to tell. Yeah. And then once you figure out that theme, that helps a lot. Because at that point, you realize that once you have that theme, every scene in your movie needs to relate to that theme in some way.
Exactly. Like, you don't have to know it going into the story per se, but once you're
building it,
once you've encountered it.
Yeah, you'll realize that that scene at the ballet recital or something doesn't tie in at all, and it's just really an excuse to put your favorite piece of ballet music into the movie. It's probably better if it's not there.
Yeah.
But definitely with a story like this, it's character first, 100%. Because if we don't feel something for all these characters, their journey, even if we don't agree, you can have a character or two who are in the wrong, doing the wrong things for the wrong reasons. But we still have to understand what's gotten them to that place. One of the things that made Breaking Bad such a successful show was that even though Walter White was doing these horrible, horrible things, like, we understood his motivation. We understood the character flaws that were causing him to do these things. You can't just do a movie about, a hardcore mother trucker who's, kicking butt and taking names.
Yeah.
You have to have some kind of justification for it. Right. It's great watching Liam Neeson killing people left and right, but if he isn't trying to save his daughter, there's no point to it.
Exactly. And there's those Liam Neeson trying to kill people movies are a dime a dozen. It's the ones that have some resonance to it, and you understand his wants and his desires and what his personal feelings and his goals and achievements and dreams and all of that. Like, when that's made apparent, it makes the movie stand out.
Yeah, and I mean, we're kind of getting off track a little bit, but I just want to say, like, the movie The Grey Liam Neeson did, like, that's a movie about Liam Neeson fighting wolves, but it's actually about, like, a whole lot more. There's a whole lot more character business, that the wilderness is just something that unleashes this from within Liam Neeson. And with your idea, you need to find what you're really telling. Like, the story you're telling can be, like, beneath the events that are actually happening.
Right.
That's basically what we're trying to say in a very convoluted, long-winded way. But yeah, I think that with basically with this baby mama drama, like it sounds silly reducing it to baby mama drama, but the main thing is it's about fathers who love their children. And that's something that is humongously relatable to everybody. I was just telling someone earlier today that Finding Nemo is a very silly fish movie for kids. But it's built on that, father trying to find his son. The father who will do anything to prevent his son from getting hurt. Mm-hmm. And this story, there might be, legal battles, there might be arguments, there might be, I don't know, maybe even a fist fight that the guy would lose because his girlfriend or wife is a butt kicker. But, like, at the end of the day, all these people are doing what they think is right for someone they love. And that's something that is very powerful. Absolutely. And I think can definitely resonate for a crowd of people.
So use that when you're moving forward with that idea, I mean, you already have it inherently in the idea, so just piggyback off of that.
Piggyback away.
Yeah.
So the next idea is from John, and it is, a dude commits suicide and becomes a ghost. Realizing all the fun he could do, he makes a mission to have sex with as many people as possible, male or female. So that idea is a little blue. Mm-hmm. It's something that it feels like a ghost sex comedy.
Yeah.
But, in this current age of, crazy Seth Rogen movies.
Right.
And there are other examples. I don't know, Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
Doing all their wacky shenanigans. I think it's definitely a high-concept comedy idea that you could actually do a lot with. However, I think there are a few aspects of it that are a little dicey for mainstream success. Do you want to tackle the first one?
I guess just the fact that he's trying to have sex with... I don't know. It's... What I was going to say is that it feels like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, how do you compare it to Groundhog Day?
Because Groundhog Day is about a guy stuck in this... first of all, he's not a very likable guy. So we could take something very similar to and apply it to this, is that it's maybe a silly nobody pothead who's like doing nothing with his life, and he ends up dying by some accident. The thing actually I was going to point out is the suicide aspect of it. That doesn't really work.
So suicide is a very heavy story element.
Yeah. And
it's something that I've seen it done comedically. Bill Murray kills himself several times in Groundhog Day.
Right.
And it's pretty funny a couple of those times. But
he always comes back.
He always comes back. That's the thing. I
guess you do.
I mean, this guy's coming back as a ghost, but the issue is that it's a little too dark of an idea for kind of a silly comedy.
Yeah.
I think a comparison that I thought of was there was a movie Ghost Town that came out a couple years ago, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago at this point. Ricky Gervais and Greg Kinnear in the lead roles. And the movie has Greg Kinnear as a ghost that Ricky Gervais can see. And, Greg Kinnear is a ghost in all the trailers you've seen. He's a ghost on the poster. So it's something that when you walk into that movie, Greg Kinnear gonna get killed for sure.
Yeah.
And the opening scene plays with that expectation. He's in a situation where you think, oh, he's gonna die this way, and then something else happens and he dies. So you can still mine laughs from a death. Yeah. It just has to have that kind of dark humor approach to it. And with suicide, that comes from a place of just deep
misery,
depression. And I think the issue with this idea as presented, it was presented as a bad idea, so I'm not saying the author didn't know what he was doing. He was sending us a bad idea as we requested, so thank you. But the issue is that he kills himself so that he can have sex with people, which makes him pretty unlikable.
Yeah.
But I think to just have kind of, a goofy death, like he falls into an open manhole cover or something like that, that's something that can be funny and in a very dark humor way. Funny, and then almost like in Beetlejuice, when Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis figure out all the stuff they can do as ghosts that they couldn't when they were alive. This is something where having sex with people is tough because it feels like this idea wants to be kind of a like John Belushi in Animal House, like stealing the panties from the sorority.
Yeah.
And so if he's having sex with people, it feels like kind of a violation of their rights in a huge degree. Right. And basically what that boils down to is if you're a ghost and you go into this is very blue, by the way, I apologize. But if you go into the women's locker room, it's just kind of like mischief. But if you go into a specific woman's bedroom to see her naked, that's a lot more personal and direct
was the issue I was having.
And creepy.
Yeah.
So
it was creepy.
Yeah. When you were talking about Groundhog Day, the basic arc of that movie is that Bill Murray really starts as a total jerk, but then by having to repeat this day over and over and over again, he becomes a better person. So almost the tagline for this movie could be like, to become a better man, he had to become a ghost first.
Yeah.
And
also this idea is currently lacking a strong conflict for the character, like a strong force for him to overcome. So like the I don't know, this is just like spitballing here, but if you wanted to relate it similar to Groundhog Day, you could have this character that just wants to, he's all like sex crazy or whatever, and he just wants to like use his new ghost powers to get chicks or whatever, and but then he ends up finding himself very lonely as a result, and it suddenly becomes less about him wanting to be this ghost, and he wants to be a normal person again, that he misses life the way it was, and this isn't so great after all. And so the story becomes him trying to get back to normal. I don't know how he would do that.
Well, I'm thinking of the thing about ghosts a lot of time is that they're in kind of a purgatory, like between heaven and hell. And I think that with the movie, when we talked about this before, it could be that he has a group of friends that he hangs out with. So you could use this kind of like Seth Rogen, James Franco, and Danny McBride in Pineapple Express. But he dies, he goes to his buddies, and he's like, oh man, this is so horrible. But his buddies are like, dude, this is great. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. This is amazing. And then with that situation, he thinks that, oh man, I'm a ghost, I have free reign. But then you introduce a common term in screenwriting, which is like a ticking clock. Just an issue that if he doesn't do this by this point, it's game over. And that can be the Grim Reaper or something shows up, and it's like, hey, you have to redeem yourself for your sins in life, or you're going to hell in 7 days. Something like that, where he's like, oh,
that's good. Actually,
shoot, I just want to like mess around, but if I keep messing around and being silly and wasting my life, if I keep wasting my unlife or wasting my afterlife, that could be your title.
Wasting the afterlife. Yeah.
If he keeps doing that, he's gonna go to hell, and so now there's pressure on him to really like figure out, okay, what can I do as a ghost, and this then breaks down into the particulars of your story. Is he going to be able to possess someone and do good deeds? Is he going to be able to, talk to Haley Joel Osment and help him save somebody's life? Just some kind of method or way for him to actually do some good using his supernatural abilities. I think one thing we talked about, too, as a possibility was that he could meet a female ghost while he's in his kind of purgatory state and start a romance there. And it could be something as simple as when he was human, he was very into physical relationships, without going too much into detail here. But then once he becomes a ghost, he can't make contact with anyone anymore. You can have the shot of him and the girl ghost try to kiss and their heads just go right through each other or something. And so now when he starts to try and have a relationship, he can't just go in for the kisses and the smooth moves. He has to actually talk to her and get to know her and form a more intimate relationship in a mental sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just, you have the relationship aspect, you have the I have to become a better person or go to hell. I have these buddies who, part of his thing could be helping his buddies do better too.
Yeah.
So they don't wind up like him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of material in there and a lot of juice in there for a story. And part of the thing that stymies a lot of writers is that once they go to script form, their first draft is like 40 pages.
Yeah.
And that's no
it's not
good.
Enough there.
That's, if you're thinking a page a minute for your screenplay, 40 minutes is not a movie, sir.
No.
So it almost helps a little bit to have an abundance of ideas at the start of it, so that you can kind of, chip away at it until you get it within, 100 minutes or so. And that way you have a script that feels full. There's enough activity and it isn't just endless getting dressed montages to just pad out the running length. Speaking of padding out the running length, is there anything else you would like to talk about right now, Jacob?
Well, I just wanted to mention really quickly that idea versus the first one we talked about, Chalkpocalypse, they're both comedies, but they share different tones. They're a little bit different setting in terms of tone. I think Chalkpocalypse takes on a more satirical, Edward Wright kind of.
Well, in Chalkpocalypse, there's actually the possibility that people will get killed.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a bit more of an urgency to that story. Chalkpocalypse is a story that I would say beginning to end takes place over like 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the ghost story, that's something that could take place over a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that it's less urgent necessarily, but there's more breathing room for character growth. With the Chalkpocalypse idea, you still need to have character development, you still need to have character growth, but it's going to be more likely to be moments.
Yeah.
You'll see how your main character changes from the beginning to the end, but you'll get it in kind of like as the car is speeding down the highway. You'll get quick road signs that tell you that, okay, he's changing a little bit here, here, and here. Whereas with the ghost idea, that's going to be a lot more sequences of him just exploring his character.
Yeah.
But I think that with the... while Chalkpocalypse may have more urgency, I think that the ghost idea has the potential to be more like a much... I would say... the ghost movie has the ability to be a better comedy because you're just spending time with the characters and enjoying them for who they are.
Yeah.
Chalkpocalypse is about the cool kills and the crazy violence.
Yeah. It's just meant to be a fun thrill ride. I mean, it's not meant to take itself too seriously, Obviously, Chalkpocalypse can still have very human moments. It should, because all good comedies should have, drama, and all good drama should have comedy. But I think the bottom line is that Chalkpocalypse is totally meant for a popcorn, fun, good time. And then the other one is a good time as well, but it takes itself a little bit more seriously in terms of its themes and its points it's trying to make.
And how about the baby mama drama?
I mean, in terms of what? Like, it's
well, like you described Chalkpocalypse as a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
The ghost movie kind of, how would you describe
Baby
the baby
mama
drama
is more of a movie that I would classify as thought-provoking.
I mean,
it doesn't have to be, but
I would say the baby mama drama could be more in the lines of like Love Actually or something.
Yeah.
It's a movie that people enjoy watching because they kind of fall in love with these characters.
Yeah.
There are to bring it back to Breaking Bad for a second. People loved Walter White. They loved to watch him. Even though in real life you wouldn't want to deal with somebody like that.
Right.
But he's a compelling character. So I feel like with that baby mama drama, there is that ability to become compelling just in these characters in these situations.
Yeah.
I think the baby mama drama might, out of the 3 movie ideas, the baby mama drama might require the best writing, because that's something that's going to live and die based on the character development. How rich these characters are. Like, it has to actually feel true to life.
Yeah.
With the Chalkpocalypse and the Ghost ones, those are typically movies that get rewritten a lot. You know, hey, we have this great premise. You know, the first script's okay, but let's see if we can make it better. And, you know, not all of those rewrites will necessarily service the script. There are a lot of great scripts that just get kind of destroyed in the rewrite process, as they're like, hey, let's appeal to kids ages 6 to 8. It's like, well, we don't need that audience. But the studio execs think that's the demographic they're missing, and this one movie has to appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
And
the premise for those can actually carry them a little bit further. Like, if you just heard the premise of baby mama drama, you wouldn't think too much of it based on its little log line in and of itself. But Chalkpocalypse catches my attention right away.
Yeah. So genre movies are always going to have bigger log lines, just because that's something that is outlandish and outside the box a little bit. Whereas human dramas, you know, very well could be better movies, but it's not something that's going to catch fire as quickly.
Yeah.
This is why the Best Picture nominees every year are humongously outgrossed by the nominees for Best Visual Effects.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
Every single year.
Star Wars.
Because, you know, the Star Wars, Transformers, I don't know, Indiana Jones, whatever's coming out that year, those are movies that have really wide-reaching abilities. Whereas a movie like The Danish Girl, I didn't see The Danish Girl, did you?
No.
I'll watch it when it's on DVD, but I don't get to the theater that much. I don't have to defend myself to you, but...
Yeah, don't even go into that.
With The Danish Girl, that's a movie that could be great. For all I know, it is a great movie. But it's something that's not going to draw in audiences the same way Deadpool would. Because Deadpool is something that's like a rocking good time, that's crazy and wild. And The Danish Girl is an intense character study that really focuses on a very, small-scale, intimate, personal drama.
Right.
But, out of those 2 movies,
which one
Danish Girl gets the Best Picture nomination. Yeah. So, there are a lot of different approaches to story. The way Jacob and I develop these ideas is not the same way 2 other people would develop these ideas. If you got Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill as your student services advisors and ask them to develop material.
Lucky whoever that student is.
Very lucky. But they would come up with something different, something that allows Channing Tatum to show his comedic muscles, and something that will get Jonah Hill a 3rd acting nomination. So I think that about brings us to a close. Did you have any final thoughts for our viewers? No?
Man. You covered it very well, so...
Thank you, Jacob.
Absolutely.
And you were a worthy second banana.